So this is an experiment. I call it Sewing and Musings with Stephen. And basically what I'm going to do is just sew and talk while I'm talking about projects, and maybe this you could turn on while you're alone in your sewing room so you don't feel so alone. It isn't live, of course, but let me adjust the camera here a little bit. That's a little better. Okay, but I'm just going to talk while I'm sewing. So what am I sewing right now? Well, I'm putting together these squares, which are part of the pattern that I'll be teaching at Stephanie's retreat in the spring in Berlin. And get things set up here. I don't know if I can talk and sew at the same time, but we'll see. So yeah, it's been kind of a weird week so far, and this is only Tuesday when I'm recording this. Tuesday, February the 4th, I believe. Yeah, and weird for a lot of reasons. A lot of worries right now in North America, especially, but in the world in general. Yeah, there's always worries in the world, aren't there? But what's really getting my goat is, so many things on the world scale and on the personal scale as well. Like, first of all, let's talk about the elephant in the room. Yep, today, Tuesday, the 4th of February, as I already said, is the day when American tariffs put on us by Trump on Canada was supposed to go into effect. And this whole last weekend, there's been nothing but all kinds of news, the media, everybody talking about this and what it's going to do to our economy, what it's going to do to the Americans' economy, and also the whole, and I guess I think it is a threat from Trump of trying to get us to become the 51st state of the United States. Well, that's not going to happen. It just isn't going to happen. We have been around since 1867, actually been around for a lot longer than that, maybe not so much as the country of Canada per se, but I mean the French explorers came here and discovered it. Actually, the Vikings discovered, well, the Labrador, and there is talk that they got into the eastern part of Canada as well over 1,000 years ago. So we've been here a long, long time, and that doesn't even count the indigenous people as well, which really it is their land. They were here first before the white explorers got here from France and then from England. And Canada was basically formed before Confederation. Confederation is where we made it pretty much legal as a country. You know, we were formed with the French Canadians, and well, they weren't Canadians then, French Canadians. They were the French. And then the English came and sort of took over, and well, that's why we have a history of being a bilingual country. Now, my thread here, my bobbin thread just ran out, so I need to replace that. But anyways, what I'm saying is we've been around for a long, long time. And to think that we're just going to suddenly become American, well, that's not going to happen. Not only that, but the politics involved, the laws involved, all of that, it's just not going to happen. The only way that Trump is ever going to get us to become a 51st state is he's basically going to have to declare war on us. Well, he has declared war on us already with the tariff business. But good news, I guess, he's thought about it, or at least cooler minds in the background, because I really don't believe Trump is clever enough to think of these things all up on his own. There's got to be forces behind him. Have delayed it for a month. Now, why? What's going to happen there? What does he think? So we've put back our tariffs on American goods, or on our stuff going to the States, being bought by industries in the States, for a month as well to see what happens. And if he decides to put them back on again, then we will put ours back on again, and that's called a trade war. So we are at war, in a sense. I don't know. I think he thinks we're pushovers, but we're not pushovers in this country. We're not. But anyways, that's got us all uptight. If anything, it's bringing our country together. We're a very diverse country. A lot of other countries in the world don't understand that. Because we're so big as a landmass, yeah, we're spread out across, 10 provinces and 3 territories. And each province, each territory has certain characteristics that make them unique. I mean, obviously, Quebec is unique, with the French-Canadian background, the French background and all of that. But, out west, they are unique as well, given the climate, the environment that's there, and what they produce. Ontario is very different from many of the provinces and pretty much hated by a lot of the provinces, and that's mainly because we're the money. Ontario is the money. It's where it's pretty much centralized in Ontario, and I mean, Ottawa, for one thing, is located in Ontario too, the capital. I mean, that was established long before the entire part of Canada, like Canada became a complete country from coast to coast to coast. But yeah, so there's some resentment there. However, this whole thing with Trump has really pulled us together. And as Justin Trudeau has said, we are Team Canada now, which I really don't like that term because that's usually what we reserve for the hockey teams that go off to play in the Olympics or something like that. Team Canada, you know. In fact, I think that kind of belittles the situation for us. But we are united, hopefully, and we're going to stand up against this threat because it is a threat. But that's given me some anxiety. I'm a proud Canadian. I always have been. My family instilled that into us, my brother, my sister, and I. And I think that's the same for a lot of families in Canada. We're not flag wavers. I know the Americans, they love their flag, and they've got it everywhere. We're not quite that way. That's not how we show our patriotism, patriotic feelings, heart. I don't know, words fail me. But, we are proud of what we are. And our values are different than those of Americans, so there's another reason why we could not be joined with the United States. We are a different culture. Yeah, I know. We all live in North America. We're all, we have a lot of similar beliefs and tastes and that kind of thing, but we are very different. I mean, we've had American businesses come into this country figuring that, we'll welcome them with open arms. And we do. We really do, because, the one thing that the American economy has, or businesses have, that we don't have here is variety. But 330, 340 million people in the United States compared to about 40 million, 41 million in Canada. The buying power is much greater. So, of course, they're going to have more services and things like that, or more variety to choose from than we have here in Canada. I mean, I know when we go down to the States, we head for a Walmart or a big department store because we want to see what they've got that we don't have. And it always absolutely amazes us. I mean, my God, you've got spray cheese. And you know how I love my spray cheese. I mean, I know it's chemical. But as I've often said, I was raised on chemicals. If I don't have them, my system will go into withdrawal, severe withdrawal. But needless to say, there is more variety in the States. So these companies have come up here into Canada and figure, they're going to make lots of money because Canadians are going to be so mesmerized and wowed by what Americans bring up. Well, not true. Target failed, or as we like to call it in Canada, Target. Yeah, it failed because it was one of those companies that assumed that. There's been restaurant chains like I don't know if it exists anymore in the States or not, but what was it called? It was a buffet kind of place. You went in and you ordered right when you walked in the door, like you do a fast food place, but it wasn't really fast food. You even ordered your drinks. What was that called? Sizzler. Sizzler. That's what it was called. And yeah, when it opened up, it did very well at first because everybody wanted to try it out. It was brand new. But it didn't last because that's not how Canadians eat. We eat different from the Americans. Yeah, we eat fast food, but even that, we noticed when we were down in Dahlonega for the retreat, Stephanie's retreat at Christmas time. Well, we went to several of their different fast food places, and oh my God, quantities. It's massive amounts of food. No wonder there's an obesity crisis in the United States because of the mass quantities. Like I joke about tub of soda. I mean, there's one size. It's huge, absolutely huge. It's bigger than our large drinks in fast food places, a lot bigger. That's just incredible. And salt. Oh my God, we went to a couple of places that, the salt was just overpowering, especially Zaxby's. Saltiest stuff I ever had. I even got a salad there, and the salad was salty. Can you figure? So we do eat differently in Canada, and we have a different approach to food in Canada. So we're not like Americans. Now you're going to say, well, that's sort of a minor thing, isn't it? Like, what does it matter? Well, on a big scale, probably doesn't matter. But the fact is, if American businesses want to survive in Canada, they need to do their homework. They need to figure out who we are. We are not like Americans at all. So here's Trump thinking that, yeah, it's going to be an easy transition. Just, bang, take us over. That's it. And we welcome it. He even had the gall to say, well, if Canadians don't want to pay tariffs, they should become part of the United States. The logic in that man's head is just nuts. But, so we sit here not on pins and needles, but we're waiting to see what our government has planned. Now, here's the bad part about this right now. The timing is horrible. We're about to lose our existing Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau, and say what you will about Justin Trudeau. He's made some mistakes. All politicians do. I do not hold politicians in high regard because basically I don't think they're there for the people. They're there for themselves, for the power, the glory, the money, whatever. But it's not for the average person that they are in politics for. And yeah, Trudeau's dropped the ball, but he's really, now I'm really pissed off with him. I mean, I was a supporter of Trudeau. I really was. I thought he did a good job during all the things that happened during COVID and all of that kind of stuff. But then he dropped the ball. And the biggest ball he's dropped is the fact that he is resigning as prime minister. And so there has to be an election very soon. Right now, Parliament is not sitting, it's prorogued. And that means that basically he's dissolved Parliament, or at least it's maybe not actually dissolved, but because you only do that when it comes to election time. But he has, put it on hold. They're not meeting. Well, if any time in history that our Parliament needs to be up and active is right now. And his own party is running a contest to see who's going to be the next leader of the party, and the next leader of the party won't be chosen until sometime at the end of March. And that person, not an elected person, like he wasn't elected to be prime minister, or she, is going to basically become the prime minister of this country. And then we'll have an election. So that's kind of unstable. Right at this point in time. And then even in our own province, the same thing is happening in our province as well. Legislature is not sitting. Doug Ford, our premier, has called an election for the end of February. And he's expecting totally that he's going to get in with a majority government, and he probably will. And what he's doing is he's basing it all on the things he's going to do to Americans to protect Canadians from Trump. Will he really? Because basically, Doug Ford is Trump in training. So, and he's of the Conservative Party, and the Conservative Party is very much like the Republican Party in the United States. Maybe not quite as extreme, excuse me, hiccups, but it is what it is. So right now, it's giving us a lot of anxiety. I think that's why I've got hiccups just thinking about it. Yeah, I don't know. Okay, yeah, I can't do this yet. Okay, I'm trying to take these pieces that I just did and lay them out, and I can't do that yet because they need to be trimmed down to 3.5-inch squares. Just remembered that. So let's get them in the right orientation and put a few out here and do that. Maybe this is not such a good idea to talk and sew at the same time, because I can get very easily mixed up. Okay, so I want to cut these at 3.5 inches from that side. So this ruler is a 3.5-inch ruler, so I just need to line it up along this edge. And cut. So, I don't know. It's a lot of anxiety because the future is very unsure right now. I don't know how Americans feel, if they feel that their future is very uncertain or not. Right now, Americans in general are not my favorite people because of what they did. I know many Americans did not vote for Trump, but however, you still contributed to it. So, yeah, I'm just so surprised there's so many people that are that stupid, because it is stupid. Radicals. We have them here in Canada too. And it's never good. But it seems that everything in the States is more extreme than here. Another difference between Canadians and Americans. So, yeah. But anyways, I could go on and on for days with this, and quite honestly, and I'm sure lots of others of you out there are sick and tired of it, of the whole thing. I mean, you turn on the news, you turn on YouTube, whatever. It's all over the internet, everything. It's all about the tariffs right now, and if it's not about the tariffs, it's about the stupid things that Trump is doing next. And, if his plan is to wear us all down by his stupidity, it's working, because we are getting worn down. We just want it to go away. At least I do. I'm sick and tired of it all. But let's move off that topic and let's talk about other things going on in my world. They give me stress. Well, if you saw my latest Idiot Quilter episode, I made a real idiot move on my latest pattern that I am designing. And yeah, not happy about that. It's one Walter did not catch, but then again, I didn't let him look at the quilt too closely because, every time I get something laid out and ready to go and happy with it, and I figure, okay, this is it, got it all solved, Walter looks at it for 30 seconds or less and goes, yeah, what about there? What's happening there? What are you doing? And it's a mistake. And I just go ape crap about that, because I go, shoot, how could I have done something so dumb? Because it's always so dumb. And yeah, I guess I should get into the habit of just having Walter look at my layouts of my quilt pieces before I sew them together. So he'll see the mistake and I can avoid ripping a lot. I didn't do that with this quilt, and I should have, because if you saw Stephen and Walter live in the past week, well, it was kind of obvious. Several of you pointed it out to me, and at first, I think I was in denial that I made such a stupid mistake. And if you want to see the mistake, it's right here behind me, because it's still hanging up on the wall, on the design wall. So if you look up here, look at this one, the points. This is right, this is wrong. They look like little sailboats. Yeah, that's not the way they were supposed to be. It's not the way I wrote the pattern. So I tried to say, oh, it's the way I took the picture. It was a little skewed. Yeah, no, it wasn't the way I took the picture. So guess what? I have to remake that quilt right from scratch again, because I looked at it to see what I'd have to do to correct the mistake. And by the time, with all the amount of seams that I would have to unsew, I could have a new quilt made. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to leave this one like this as a reminder of being stupid. And I might rename it tongue-in-cheek. I'm calling this is my cornered stars pattern I'm working on. I could change it to sailboats and stars, because those mistake pieces look like little sailboats. In fact, somebody, I think it may have been Russ of Quilt Meets World on Sunday on the live, pointed that out to me, that it looked like sailboats. But yeah, no, that's not the way to get around it. I need to redo the quilt. So I've picked out my fabrics for it yesterday, but I've got it on hold at the moment because I really need to get this sample quilt for Stephanie's retreat done. I mean, I have a couple of other samples of this quilt, but this is my final one that I'm making because I want to make sure that my pattern is as clean and well organized and clear as it possibly can be. Also, it's been a bit since I hope I'm cutting these right. Yeah, I am. Okay, good. Almost had a thought here that I was doing this wrong. It's true. Men can't multitask. But, and I'm sorry that I even admitted to that, but I guess it is true. At least I'm proving it. At least for me, I can't multitask this way. So, anyways, yeah, I got to get this one done. And this is a reminder because I'm going to be teaching this, and I really don't want to screw up on the teaching. To be honest, I am a little bit concerned about the retreat in the spring for a couple of reasons. One of them is I have never taught how to sew a quilt, taught a pattern to a group of people before, ever. I mean, yeah, I'm a teacher. I have a teaching background, but I taught English. Yeah. So this is not completely out of my comfort zone, but I want to do a good job. I don't want to let Stephanie down. And I mean, there's going to be 40 people at this retreat. I mean, the crowd doesn't bother me. The number doesn't bother me. I've spoken to larger crowds than that many times in my life. But here's the thing I'm really worried about, and I'll let you in on a little of my inner thinkings here, my secrets. Although we say that quilters are the nicest and friendliest people in the world, no, they're not. Okay, no, they're not. They're critical. They're very critical. And when you're in an environment where there's that many people, and and everybody's kind of maybe at a different, sews at a different speed, it's a little at a confidence level that's a little different from others, then you get a lot of criticism, you get a lot of questions. And when it's one person up against 40, trying to get to everyone and help them out can be a bit trying. Doesn't mean I won't do it, because I certainly will do it. But I want to do it right. And I don't want anybody to feel left out, and I don't want anybody to feel like they're inadequate or something like that, no matter what their skill level is. And so, yeah, those are all worries I have about it. I want to also make sure that they enjoy the process. And so that means somewhat keeping people entertained while you're doing this. That's not a problem for me. I'm used, as I said, I'm used to being up in front of people all the time for 31 years, as a teacher. But this is a little different crowd, a little more specialized than when I was teaching. So, yeah, we'll see what happens. Okay, I've got these all trimmed up. Now we can start laying them out, put my rulers away. And I think I just got a text message. Oh yeah, from Russ, Quilt Meets World. He texts me all the time. We text back and forth. So he says, I meant to take a... No, I read that right. Okay, he's asking me about 3D printing because I gave him one of my older 3D printers. It says vocabulary. What is the perimeter of filament called? That's called a skirt. So I just put that in for him. And I couldn't spell skirt right. Spelling hard. Okay, let's get these laid out. So what was I talking about? Oh yeah, Stephanie's retreat in the spring. So that's what one of my little worries there. I am creating a series of videos for each step of this quilt. And my idea of that is, if people want to review each step, they'll be able to do that, because I'm going to put it on YouTube, but I'm going to make it a private link, and only the people at the retreat will actually have the link, and they could probably tie into it right at the place we're staying at the hotel in Berlin, because they have a Wi-Fi system there that's free, so they'll be able to go right into it and check it out. But at the same time, I'm hoping that I will be able to broadcast it. I'm going to take my computer down, and I'm going to take connections. They've got a big screen TV, I think, in the room that we're going to be in for the retreat. So I think I can plug into that, and I can use that so people can see more clearly what they need to do with each step along the way. And that's my thought anyways, I want to keep everybody on track. So we'll see how that works out. That's the plan. But best laid plans of mice and men. I think Russ just answered me back. He says, thanks, I'm trying to get my 3D vocabulary working so I know what I'm talking about. Good luck with that. Yeah, there is a different language when it's 3D printing that you have to learn. But anyways, so those are my thoughts. The other reason why I am a little apprehensive, and it goes back to what we were talking about before, or what I was talking about before, when it comes to the politics of the situation. To be honest, I think if I go down to the United States, if the tariffs are put back onto us at that time and everything, and given the climate, I feel like a traitor to my own people. I mean, I don't want to leave Stephanie in the lurch at all. And I'm going to have to discuss discuss it with her a little further. I want to go. I've done a lot of work for this as well, but you know, it's a hard place to be in. I'm sure if you're an American, you don't understand what I'm talking about right now and how I feel about it, because that's not how you feel about it. I need another design board, so I'm probably going to go out of shot here for a second. But it is a worry. But we'll just wait and see. I mean, this may never come to pass, this thing with the tariffs, because he being Trump, he's already given us another month's reprieve for whatever he thinks that's going to do for us. I don't know how that's going to change the situation. But anyways, I guess it's just, the whole thing's just a wait and see. Unfortunately, I think we're going to have 4 years of this wait and see, which is not good. It's not good for either side of the border. But I'm back on that again, aren't I? So let's get off that and let's talk more about things to do with what I'm working on this week. So my plan today was to at least get these pieces for the retreat quilt done. It's basically 2 different blocks. They're actually the same block in style. They're just different in slightly different in color. And I'm hoping that the colors of these, I hope it does show up, because I don't know. I may have screwed up on my color choices for this. I hope not. But anyways, so that's what my plan is right now today. And then I may carry on, get it laid out, and that'll mean making another video for it. I've made the video for this that I'm working on right now. So I'll make the next video. Tomorrow we have Sewing with Stephanie and Stephen, and that's always fun. I enjoy it. I look forward to Wednesdays sewing with people. It's one of the reasons why I'm doing this right now as an experiment, this, sewing and musings with Stephen. I don't know, this might be a dumb idea. You may never see this. I may put this one up and see how you feel about it. I don't know how often I want to do one of these or whatever. I don't know if they're any value or whatever. I mean, this idea just came to my head, and I get crazy ideas sometimes. And so we'll see. Well, I guess I should probably clip these together, because I'm finding I am not good at sewing a straight line without things being clipped together. Also, it helps me keep the pieces in the right orientation, so I don't sew, the wrong side to the wrong side of pieces and have to do a ripping out. But anyways, yeah, so that's what I'm working on. 3D printer is working away. Now, you know that I bought a new 3D printer, and that printer is called the Bamboo Labs X1 Carbon. And it's an expensive printer. It cost me almost $2,000 with tax and shipping and all of that good stuff. But I'm really happy with it right now. Now, I've been putting it through its paces, trying to learn how to use it, the software that you use with it as well. And there's quirks to 3D printing that you have to get over, or at least be aware of, as I think Russ is finding out right now with his. But for the most part right now, I do not regret spending the money on it. It is working fabulously, and hopefully it will continue to work fabulously. I'm printing a really huge job right now, which involves making this specialized stand that my AMS is going to sit on top of the machine. Now, my AMS, what's an AMS? It stands for Automatic Material Supply. And basically, it's the color changer. I can put up to 4 rolls of filament in it, and the software that you use with it, when there's a color change in a print, it will automatically do the color change. And this is really cool because on my old ones, that was not possible without stopping the machine, putting a new roll of filament in a different color, and carrying on. And that was just too time consuming, and there was no guarantee that things would line up properly once you'd stop the machine and restarted the machine when you're making the filament change. And so, needless to say, I didn't do much of that very often. But with this one, wow, and the possibilities, the things now that I can make, it's just endless out there. But one of the things I found out about this printer is, because it has an enclosure, my other printers don't have an enclosure around them. There are certain materials that you use in a 3D printer that either don't like to be in an enclosure or need to be in an enclosure. And what does an enclosure do? Well, basically, it traps the heat of the machine inside. And like I said, some filaments work better with more internal heat. But with the filament that I use, which is called PLA, and it's probably the most common filament that people use, and probably the easiest to use as well, you could have a problem where it gets too hot in the chamber if the door is closed, and it can back up in your head, in your nozzle head, in the hot end as they call it, and cause a blockage. That is not good to have a blockage. So I have been printing these longer jobs, especially in a longer job, it'll build up the heat because, you know, if you're running a job for 8, 9, 10 hours at a setting or at a sitting, yeah, it's going to get warm. So I've had the door open part way. But with this thing I'm making right now, this stand that'll fit on top of the printer box, and the AMS will sit on top of that, it allows you to take the glass top off of the bamboo printer and allows for the circulation of air. So that's what I'm working on. And so far, you build it in pieces. There are 8 different pieces, and each piece is substantial. It takes, well, the first piece I printed took about 15 hours, and the pieces I'm printing right now, I'm on piece number 4 of 8. It says it's going to take a little more than 8 hours to print out. But they've been coming out beautifully. And it looks like it's going to go together really easily too. I've been watching videos about this, and I've seen, you know, how you do it. So I'm excited, but this is not going to be done until closer to the end of the week, because basically I'm making like 1 piece a day with that. So yeah, but so far I am very much impressed with this machine. All right, I've got all these clipped. Now I need to start putting them together. So back over to the sewing machine. Okay, we're at the sewing machine. And let's do this and try not to screw up too badly. When I do piecing, I've gotten into the habit of dropping my needle first, then putting my piece under the foot and just butting it up against the needle, and then away I go sewing. And of course, I've got the needle down on this machine, so all I do is pop the foot back up and put the next piece in when I'm doing like chain stitching, like, and that's basically what I'm doing right now. I also find that keeps my thread from going down inside the machine. Although this is the Continental M7 from Janome, and it's got like 12 feed dogs, and they work really, really well. You don't really have that problem. You can have it sometimes, but it avoids having to use leaders and enders. Although there are times when leaders and enders are a good thing. So what I'm doing right now when I'm making this block is I'm using some of the acorn pressing solution. I love that stuff. We call it magic juice. I'm not sure who came up with that term. I have a feeling it was Russ. Russ always comes up with new words for things that we do. But it does. It really helps make your seams nice and flat. And I think it really helps with your piecing because the seams are flatter, they nest better. At least that's my theory, and I'm sticking to it. But I love the stuff. And I think you find if you try it, you'll love it too. A lot of people do. Okay, so I've got those two pieces pressed. I think I'll do these, instead of doing a complete chain sewing experience with all these, I'm going to sew two sections together, then put those two sections together to make my block or my unit, because this is really not, yeah, no, this is the block. This is the whole block. Yeah. So I'll show you what this looks like when I get this one sewn. Yeah, so what was I talking about? Yeah, so projects and things that I'm doing. So yeah, I'm doing a lot of 3D printing. Yesterday, I fixed one of the older 3D printers. I have fixed those printers so many times, added new parts to them, replaced broken down parts, because they do. They will break down. In fact, you're constantly, at least on the Creality KEs or any of the Creality machines. I've had the Ender 3 version 2s as well. That's what I gave to Russ. I have replaced almost every part in them. And you want to know something? When I first got a 3D printer, it was overwhelming. And it took Walter and I remember when it arrived, and there was some assembly required. Yeah, quite a bit actually. It took us about a good half of a day to get the machine together, and we were reading instructions, and the instructions, were not that well written. They came from China, so you know what I'm talking about. They've gotten better though. I'll have to say that for that company. But yeah, so we got it together, and then there was this bed leveling stuff and whatnot. And yeah, it took quite a while for me to get comfortable with 3D printing, but I was determined I was going to do it. I'd spent the money. I was going to get my money's worth out of it. And what I'm doing right now with the block is I'm just giving it a spritz of the Acorn Precision Pressing solution, because I like that. It really makes your block flat. And I don't use steam anymore. No, and I know, I guess it was another idiot move, but I was in denial. I love steam, thought you need to steam the hell out of everything. And I was wondering why my blocks, when I was sewing them, were not coming out to the dimensions. They were usually off by 1/8 to, some cases, even up to as much as 1/4 of an inch smaller than what they were supposed to be according to a pattern. So someone said, yeah, it's probably steam. Steam is shrinking your fabric. Now, I don't pre-wash my fabric. I've told you that many times before. Because I'm lazy, for one thing. Because I don't want to take it out of the dryer and have to press it and everything like that. I do not starch the heck out of my fabric. I know, again, there are people who do that and swear by it. And that's fine. You do you. Whatever works for you. I don't do that. But I decided to experiment. So a piece that I was working on that I had steamed the heck out of, I made another one and didn't use steam, and guess what? Came out perfect. Yeah. So there is something to that. Now, the other thing I have found is trim as you go. And I just straighten up the edges because they do stretch when you're sewing them a little bit. I don't take off too much, just a sliver. But I find that is helping me with making my piecing more precise as well. So between those two things, the not using steam and doing a little slither slicing, things are coming out much more accurate. And I'm not having to do as much fudging as I used to, because I was the fudging king. You know, I'd make it fit. You're going to fit my fuzz. So let's see how this one came out. 6.5. Yep, that came out great. So this is what I'm talking about. This is the piece here. Let's go over this way. I need to adjust the camera a little bit, but there's what I'm working on. Yeah. So I need to make, I've already got one of these made. So I made it when I was doing the video. And I need 8 in total, so there's 2. Now I just need 6 more. So back to the sewing machine and carry on. Okay, so yeah, talking about projects being overwhelmed. One of the things I found that really helped me get over being overwhelmed with, you know, looking at so many things you want to get done and you never start anything because you feel overwhelmed. I have an area here, you can't see it on the camera, but it's just over in this area where I used to have my secondary sewing machine, my travel machine was located there. But I was piling up other things on top of it. And I do not like a mess. I like things to be neat, tidy, orderly. Got the hiccups now. Sorry, you're probably hearing that. So I decided, well, why do I have my travel machine sitting out? Because there's no real reason. I don't use it except when I go to a retreat or something like that. So I just left it in its travel bag, and I have, you know, an extra supply of tools and things like that. And they're all in that bag too. So, you know, it's, some people call that a go bag. I guess it is. You know, everything is there. I don't have to worry about forgetting anything if I'm going out the door, and it saves a little bit of time as well. So anyways, that's where it sits, and I cleared up this area I have over here. So I've reorganized it last week, prioritized some projects, got out some file folders and took a lot of patterns and things that I want to do, like embroidery things and other quilts and whatnot, organized them, labeled them very clearly. I love my label machine. Absolutely love it. I label everything, and I have for years. If you came into my sewing room and looked at my drawers and my cupboards, you would know what's in them because they're all labeled. And I do that for 2 reasons. One, it keeps me organized, keeps things neat and tidy. I know where things are supposed to go. And second of all, I can find them. Yeah, because I forget where I put things a lot. And that seems to be something that happens to you as you get older too, I find. You sometimes wonder, am I developing dementia or Alzheimer's? Which kind of scares me because my father had it. And, you know, I think they say that there is a good possibility that it is hereditary. So that's one reason why I like quilting and writing patterns and things like that, because it keeps my creative juices flowing, keeps my brain going. I know some people do the crossword puzzles or do Sudoku. I'm not good at crossword puzzles, and yeah, I don't like games. I never have. I've never been a big game player. So, quilting though, or being creative, making things like 3D printing and that, and back in the days when I used to be a scrapbooker, all of that works really well for keeping my mind active. And I really do believe anything what's going to age you is not your body, is not the physical, it's the mental. That's what's going to make you feel really old. So that's my theory, and I'm sticking to it. But yeah. So anyways, I reorganized this area over here. I have baskets that have all the pieces for a project in them, including the pattern. I have this box of file folders that are all laid out and labeled with projects. And I have patterns in types of boxes, actually pattern boxes that I printed on my 3D printer for it. So you know how patterns come folded in half. They're on 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper, but they're usually folded in half and put in like a clear plastic bag. That's how you usually buy them in a quilt store. Well, I made a series of holders that fit that size, that orientation really well, and it keeps them all very neat. And I can label the spine, and I have, of each of these boxes saying, you know, what patterns are in here. Like I've got some that are labeled for Project Linus, although I may have to rethink that because I'm not really thrilled with the chapter of Project Linus that's out here in my area. You've probably heard me tell the story about, you know, I've donated quite a few quilts to Project Linus, and yeah, it feels like it's a drug deal. Yeah, you probably laugh at that, but I make arrangements to meet the lady who takes the quilts in, but she still works. She's not a retired individual like me. And I go to her house. We meet in her driveway on her lunch hour, and I hand off the quilts to her. And she goes, okay, great, bye. And off we go. You know, it's like you're looking up and down the street to make sure nobody from the authorities is watching us because, you know, it's a drug deal going down. No, honestly, officer, it's not drugs, it's just quilts. Sure it is. It is. But also, the other thing that really got my goat about Project Linus is once I handed off the quilts, that's it. No more communication. Nobody sends you a little thank you note. And I know some people will say, well, you shouldn't expect a thank you. You do it from the heart. Somebody recently wrote that as a comment, said that's what their aunt always said. Well, that doesn't work for me. I want to be thanked. I'm sorry. I don't think it's being selfish. And you've heard me talk about this before. I don't think it's selfish to think that you shouldn't expect at least a simple thank you. A simple thank you in this day and age by email is great. It doesn't take much to write one. Just thank you so much for your donation. We really appreciate it. Have a good day. Drop dead. Goodbye. You know, like really. But nope. And it's not just Project Linus that does that kind of thing or doesn't do that kind of thing. It's other organizations that I've donated to and whatnot. I guess, and I did a rant about this, so I'm not going to go too far into it again. But, you know, in this day and age of charities, they just want money, and they want massive amounts of money. They don't want $5 or $10 or $20 here or there. They want thousands. And even then, I don't know if you'd get a thank you for doing that. So it's a bit disheartening. But anyways, as I was saying, I have this whole area organized, and I have these boxes that hold future patterns in it. I've got so many, I'll never get to them all in my lifetime. But it makes me happy when I see this corner and realize everything is now there laid out. And I've sort of got a list sitting there. I've prioritized, whether I stick to it or not, that's another story. But I've prioritized the projects I want to get done in the very near future. And that helps with not feeling so overwhelmed. Because as I get the projects done on that list, I just cross them off, and that makes me feel good. But you know, it's not a race either, is it? I mean, all of us. I hear it all the time from other quilters. Oh my God, I've got this to do, and I got to get this done, and I got to do that. And you know, a lot of times, if we really stand back from it, at least I find, those are self-inflicted deadlines. There's no one standing over your head with an axe or a club and say, get this done now. We are our own worst enemies when it comes to, you know, time management and that kind of thing. We put unrealistic expectations and deadlines on ourselves, and it gets us frustrated. And when you're frustrated, at least what I am, I don't get as much done. I'm not as efficient. So yeah, and so this helps having a list, but also getting a grip and going, hey, This is supposed to be fun. If you're not having fun, why are you doing it? Um, so yeah, just get a grip. You'll get it done. I mean, that's the beauty of being retired too. Primarily the time is your own, but I know for a lot of people, they dread the idea of retirement because they're not sure what they're going to do with their time. I did not. I looked forward to it. But you know, I spent the year before I retired, I spent the year sort of brainstorming what I was going to do or what I wanted to try, that kind of thing. I had this journal. It was called a smash journal. They were all the rage at the time. Now, at the time I'm doing this, I was a scrapbooker and a paper crafter. And so this was all part of that, um, you know, culture. And I had that journal with me every day. I took it and put it on my desk in my classroom. When I had a couple of moments or ideas came to my head, I would jot them down, and I had it divided up because I'm like this. I had it divided into sections. I had little cute little stickers for it and everything like that. It was kind of fun to write in it. I did it in different colors of pen and all this kind of stuff. Well, that was kind of the craze at that point in time when I did it. But what it really helped me do was to think about what I wanted to do when I retired. The one thing I knew I didn't want to do was rot in front of a television set because, well, I watched my father and my mother both basically do that. When my father retired, and he was a journeyman lineman, he worked for the local public utilities, hydro um, hydro, power utility. I guess that's the word I want. Power utilities system. And my father loved his job. He had been doing this work since he was like 18, 17 years old, and he loved it. He even had his own business for a while. My dad was not really a great businessman. People took advantage of my dad. My dad was a very good-hearted man, and he did quality work. But when it came to getting paid for it, he'd underestimate what he was worth financially. And there were a lot of clients he had who decided they didn't want to really pay him. And, that was mental anguish for my dad. I mean, he survived, and he did that for about 18 years. But eventually he had to give it up because it just wasn't paying the bills. And he went back to the Public Utilities Commission and worked for them until he retired. And even after he retired, they sort of hired him back to look after summer students. They had a summer student program where they went around, and the square boxes that you see on the side of the street that have the power connections in them. Well, their job was basically to go inspect those to make sure people weren't doing things that they shouldn't be doing, like painting them, planting a garden around them to hide them. Yeah, they're kind of ugly boxes, but that is a problem for the utilities when they have to come in and they have to repair a line or something like that. So my dad would take these summer students out, and they would repaint these boxes, they'd clean them up and all that kind of stuff. And Dad loved working with those kids, those young people. And they loved him too. But what wasn't to love about my dad? My dad was a very personable person. Well, at least to other people, maybe not to me. But well, that's not true. But I mean, my dad and I did have differences of opinion, let's say. But I love my dad, and I miss him. Now he's gone too. But finally, my dad had some physical problems, and he was starting to develop dementia. The early stages, we didn't realize it at that point, but they eventually said, "Okay, you can't do this anymore." And so then my dad didn't have anything to do. And that was sad. He had a computer. He'd call me up all the time. Well, I did this with that thingy and this thingy, and then I pushed this thingy, but I don't know what it's doing. It's broken. I said, "No, Dad, it's not broken." And I'd go over to their house. Luckily, they didn't live all that far away. And I'd set him up with it and get it all working and everything for him fine. Of course, that didn't last long because we'd be back at the same problem again. And then he'd be sitting around watching television. My mother would be sitting around. My dad did make his own wine. It was horrible. Oh, absolutely horrible. Worst stuff ever. In fact, anytime we were over there at their place for dinner or whatever, we'd take a bottle of wine over. And one day my father says to me, "You always bring a bottle of wine. You just don't like my wine, do you?" And I decided, let's just be truthful. He already knows the truth. And I says, "No, Dad, the stuff you're making is going to kill you." And my mother says, "It's okay if you cut it with a little ginger ale or orange juice." Okay, Mom, when you have to mix pop or orange juice in your wine, you know it's not good. And my mother drank way too much of it. Was she an alcoholic? That is a good question. If she was, she wasn't a fall down dead drunk, but my mother was never more than an arm's length away from a glass of wine. She eventually stopped drinking wine altogether because it was starting to affect her stomach, and no doubt because my dad's stuff was rot gut. It definitely, that's one reason why I wouldn't drink it. It wasn't just the taste of it, it was the fact that it was eating your stomach lining out. So yeah, but that was all he had. Nothing else. To to work on to keep himself out of mischief, which was sad. So eventually he ended up in a nursing home, and he was only in the nursing home for about 6 weeks and got a call that he had passed away in the night. They figured his heart just stopped. But I think my dad was very unhappy at that point, and I think my dad willed himself to go. He was not that old when he passed away. He was only, I have to think, I think he was only about 80 at the time. And he was in physically good health, given that, okay, I've done something screwed up here on this. Why is that piece so much different than the other? Okay. Like I said, I can't do two things at once. He had just gotten a clean bill of health. He couldn't walk, but that wasn't necessarily because of a physical thing. It was more to do with his brain, the dementia. The brain wasn't sending this, the signal to walk wasn't going from his brain to his legs. So he hated the nursing home, and yeah, didn't blame him for that. I couldn't get him into where I would like to have gotten him in for a variety of reasons, financially, also availability. It's very difficult in this country to get someone into a nursing home. The waiting lists are years long. It's horrible. But anyways, I yelled and screamed crisis a lot, and I got him into this one anyways. And as far as I was concerned, that was a temporary placement until I could get him into some place that I thought he might like better. Or was he going to like it? I don't think my dad would have liked any place, and I don't blame him. It was a different environment for him to be there, and yeah. So basically, I think my father willed himself to die, which is sad. And then I had to deal with my mother. So that meant she could not maintain the house on her own. She didn't want to. When my father passed away, she went into depression, naturally so. She'd been with my father since she was 16 years old. And yeah, I get it. But I tried to do the best I could. I sold her house, which she made. It was at a time when, well, the time is still there. The boom was still going on in housing prices, so we got more for the house than we asked for it, which was good because this was a over 60-year-old subdivision home, 900 square feet. It was dated inside in terms of decor, the whole bit. There needed to be things done to that house, and yeah, I was thrilled. It was a lot of work to get her moved and everything. I found her a nice 2-bedroom apartment on the ground floor of a place in the community my sister lives in. So she was only a mile away from my sister, which was good, although I was over there more often than my sister. And her best friends had moved into that same apartment building. So yeah, I thought this is great. Laundry facilities were on the same floor. She didn't have to go up any stairs or an elevator or anything like that. At the beginning, we got her new furniture. She wanted custom drapes on the windows. We got that for her. The whole thing. It was a nice little apartment, but nothing was ever good enough for my mother, even before she got to the stage she was at after my father passed away. And it just went downhill from there. And in fact, part of my brain has wiped out a lot of the things that were going on because I was at my wit's end, because this was all new to me. I didn't know what to do. I was making it up as I went along, and I had just newly retired. So I was trying to deal with that aspect of my life as well, because that was a life change. My brother lives out in BC, so he was of absolutely no help because of the, living 5,000 kilometers away. My sister, although she lived in the same town, she was busy with her children, although they were pretty much grown up at that point in time and other things. And I mean, my sister, if I needed something from my sister that I'd sign to my sister and say, look, I need you to do this, she did. She was good that way, but all the decisions fell on my shoulders. And, well, I have broad shoulders. Anyways, my mother was never happy. I tried to get her involved in things. I even said I'd go with her to some of these events and things like that. And eventually she just stopped walking too because she didn't want to. She ended up in the hospital for a while. They couldn't find anything wrong with her. She was there for about 4 months until it was the only way I could get her into a nursing home. And I got her into one, and it wasn't the best, but they were making a new one. Same company. The staff were really good at this one too. So that offset the fact that the facility was older. And we did get her into the new one. Brand new, shiny new, nice room, everything like that, nice facilities. And she still wasn't happy, and she just carried on going downhill. And then one morning I got a call that she had passed away in the night. And I don't know if this was right of me or whatever. I still feel a little guilty about it. But when I got that call, suddenly a weight had just been lifted from my shoulders. And I'm sorry to say that. I love my mother, and I still don't feel that I did probably the best job. When looking at it in hindsight, there were probably other things I could have done. I just didn't know at the time what those were. So, yeah. But anyways, I don't know how I got onto that topic, but that's why I call this Musings, because it's just stream of consciousness as I'm working on my thing. So I got my other ones done here. And now I have to look at what I'm supposed to do next in this pattern. Ooh, we're coming up to the sashing and cornerstone. So, I don't know. I must have the pieces. Yes, I have the pieces cut for this. So, maybe what I should do is clean up my wall here and maybe take a little bit of a break, check my email and everything. So, I think this is all I'm going to do today. So, thanks for joining me. Let me know if I post this, whether or not you found that this was something that, kept you company while you were sewing, if you're by yourself, if you enjoyed it or not. And if so, maybe I'll do a few more down the road when I'm in the mood. I don't know. Let me know what you think. Or do you just think this is a mindless waste of time, which it could possibly be? I don't know. Anyways, have a good day. See you later.